Now, Expelled founder of the MK party, Jabulani Khumalo, has turned to the Western Cape High Court on an urgent basis, seeking his reinstatement as the MK party's #1 candidate. Khumalo is also asking the court to prohibit the MK party former President Jacob Zuma or anyone working under their instruction from removing his name as a member of the National Assembly. Khumalo seeks to obtain his interdictory order from the court prior to the first sitting of the National Assembly on the 14th of June. This is pending Part B of his application, which seeks to challenge his expulsion and a looming electoral court judgment on the leadership battle in the newly formed political party. Khumalo recently challenged the IEC's recordal of Zuma as the leader of the party in the specialist court. Judgment was reserved in that matter. All right, to unpack all of this for us, political analyst Bongani Mahlangu joins us for an analysis on these and other political stories. Thank you so much for your time. So let's first get your reaction then to this urgent application by the MK party to interdict the first sitting of the National Assembly, which is taking place this Friday, of course, observing all other matters that are related to the MK party.
No, greetings to you, colleagues in studio and viewers at home. So the MK party is well within their rights to exercise this or to implement what they're currently implementing. However, what they fail to do in terms of appraising the public is to provide that evidence that they claim to have, which is that voter rigging took place and that they lost a significant amount of votes due to that process, especially in the province of KwaZulu-Natal that they had hoped to win outright. They equally go on to say that so much as they've received a significant amount of votes that have put them #3 in terms of performance, and that means they got a mandate to represent those voices that supported them. But there are certain voices, a significant amount of voices that have also been excluded due to that irregular process, and they're trying to find means to ensure that those voices are not lost due to incompetence from the IEC. So it's interesting, but if it is well within the law, it is then fine. They must then pursue it. And I think the sooner the better, because now it will force them to present the evidence that they claim to have had, I think, for the past 2 weeks now, but have failed to bring it to the public domain.
Of course, one of the questions that they will probably also have to answer to is why wait so long after that 5 days that, was given to all political parties in which to then, state their grievances with the proper channels being the electoral court for one, in terms of some of the issues they are now taking to the Constitutional Court?
I think they would rebut that by just pointing us to the statements that they've been making for the past several days, even before the official declaration of results, that they did engage the IEC. Maybe even that evidence of that engagement will be brought to the court. Also that it was not just them, but 20 other parties or several other parties that are also disaggrieved by the same processes. So now, that's what I'm saying, the sooner it goes to court, the better, because all these things, all this evidence of engagement, evidence of voter rigging, them being compromised, and the significance of them being compromised will now be brought to the public domain. Because also the IEC has stated in, I think, several platforms that there might have been irregularities in certain spaces. But then when you quantify them, they're immaterial to a point that they do not alter the performance of a particular party. And that, to me, I believe to be fair, because when you run such a big process of getting over about 16 million people to vote, obviously there will be errors. But then we look at the margin of error, that is it significant? Does it prejudice an individual party? If it does not, then we should be able to continue. But if it does, then it needs to be looked into. So there has also been that rebuttal and that defense from the IEC. So now it's time that it goes to court. Obviously, timing is everything in politics. So MK, they said that they would boycott the first sitting, and then they realized when you look closer into the law in terms of the sections in the Constitution and the Electoral Act, where it defines composition, that you are composed before you sit. So sitting is just quorum, and quorum can be met with or without them. So now this is then to say, how do we then also frustrate this process, but frustrate it in a context that we also do not infringe on the existing laws. So then that is also being strategic on their part. But the question is, what is then the end goal? If really they have the evidence, then that is something. But if they not, what is the point of frustrating the process? Yeah. Just get the process going, because they've already embarked on coalition engagement, especially with the ANC, and they've issued a statement as to what points they've brought to that table of engagement. And they've also given their input in terms of statements issued with regards to what the ANC has proposed in a sense of government of national unity. So Mahlangu, if they were at least clear on what their end goal is.
Mr. Mahlangu, before we run out of time, I want to squeeze exactly that last point that you are making now about the government of national unity. I mean, of course, everyone is eyeing the outcome of this, how this will look like, particularly as Parliament sits for the first time on Friday. What can we expect when, Parliament sits on Friday, in as far as, just seeing the processes and the areas of contention that would have been addressed in forming, this particular government of unity?
So basically, we must just remember that the government of national unity is a proposal by the ANC as an individual party that does have the bulk of the votes in terms of the 40% that they have. But there still needs to be engagements with other parties so they can have buy-in and form that government. And so far, there's not been clarity as if these other parties are willing to participate, because they would also have certain interests that they want to put into the table in order to structure this government of national unit. Because if you look into even historically, it takes different forms subject to who puts it together. So now there is engagement with other organizations as to how it might look, and I don't believe that by the first sitting, those engagements would have been concluded. So then they will exercise the provision of an extension and not necessarily the election of the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, and President. And again, that is still within the law. So it would give them more time to properly engage and properly structure it. But if you look into what the MK has said in this context with regards to the GNU, they are not overly opposed. In fact, it's quite interesting, because if you read the statements they've issued on their website, they are actually pro it, and they are not raising issues of constitutional amendments and so forth. The only issue that they are raising of significance is that there has to be an implementation of radical change, but within a context where it does not cause socio-economic instability.